I never thought corporate life could be so unpredictable. 8 years at Tech Vision, position of lead analyst, stable salary, everything was measured and clear. Until that very morning. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce your new department head, Jane Foster, the CEO announced at the general meeting. I choked on my coffee. Jane, my mother-in-law, the woman I'd known for the past 5 years as my wife Sarah's mother, was now becoming my direct supervisor. Robert, are you okay? Mike, my colleague, patted me on the back. Yes, just hot coffee. Jane stood at the podium, elegant, confident, in a strict dark blue suit. No trace of the woman who would pile extra servings on my plate at family dinners and ask when Sarah and I would give her grandchildren. I have big plans for developing the department. Her voice sounded professional and detached. I look forward to productive cooperation. After the meeting, everyone crowded around her, congratulating and introducing themselves. I stood aside, not knowing how to behave. Robert, she approached me last. I hope this won't create problems? No, not at all. I mean, no, ma'am. Ma'am? She smiled slightly. At work, I'm Jane, or Miss Foster if you prefer. Back in the office, Mike whistled. Listen, she's quite a hot piece for her age. How old is she anyway? She's my mother-in-law, I muttered. What? He nearly fell off his chair. Holy! I mean your mother-in-law. Damn, sorry. How are you going to handle this? No idea. That evening, Sarah called. Honey, Mom told me about her new job. Isn't it great? Great! I tried to sound enthusiastic. Now you'll be spending more time together. She adores you, you know. If only Sarah knew how awkward I felt at the first meeting where Jane criticized my report, or how strange it was to receive work emails from her with the formal, Dear Mr. Baker. Robert, stay behind, she said after another meeting. We need to discuss the quarterly plan. We were left alone in the conference room. She took off her glasses, and I suddenly noticed how tired her eyes were. Listen, she sighed. This is strange for both of us, but we're adults. Let's just work? Of course, Jane. I mean, Miss Foster. God, stop it! At work, Jane. At home, Sarah's mom. Deal? I nodded, trying not to notice how nice her perfume smelled. Within a week, the whole office was buzzing with gossip. Some said I got a promotion because of family connections. Others hinted at special relations with the boss, not knowing how close to the truth their jokes were. She really was my mother-in-law. Ignore it, Jane advised, when I complained about the whispers behind my back. There will be new gossip soon. She was right. But none of us could have predicted what kind of gossip would appear in a couple of months, and how close to the truth it would be. You're going to Chicago, Jane said, placing a folder of documents on my desk. New project presentation. Okay, when? Tomorrow, and I'm going with you. I looked up. What? This is an important client. We need the manager's personal presence. She spoke dryly, professionally. Tickets are already booked. Departure at 9 a.m. On the plane, we sat together. Jane was reading documents while I tried to work on the presentation but kept getting distracted by her profile. In office lighting, she looked like a strict boss, but here, in the soft morning light, I saw a beautiful woman who looked much younger than her years. Something wrong? She caught my gaze. No, just Sarah doesn't know we're flying together. No, I told her I'm flying alone. She turned to the window. Don't want unnecessary questions. In Chicago, we were given adjacent rooms. At check-in, the receptionist assumed we were a couple. Jane didn't even bother correcting him. Dinner at 7? She asked as we rode the elevator. We need to discuss tomorrow's meeting. The hotel restaurant was half empty. Jane ordered wine. May I? She nodded at my glass. Or you don't drink with your mother-in-law. I don't know who you are to me right now, mother-in-law or boss. She smirked. And who would you like me to be? The question hung in the air. I took a big sip of wine. Tell me how you and Sarah met, she suddenly asked. She told me, but I want to hear your version. We talked until midnight. About work, life, Sarah. Jane turned out to be a wonderful conversationalist, intelligent, with a subtle sense of humor. Very different from how I knew her before. You know, she said as we went up to our rooms, I'm glad you married Sarah. You're a good man, Robert. There was something in her eyes that took my breath away. The presentation went successfully. We celebrated at the hotel bar. After the third glass, Jane took off her jacket, and I caught myself unable to take my eyes off her neck. What are you thinking about? She leaned closer. About how strange all this is. What exactly? This trip. She looked at me for a long time, then said quietly, You know what's strangest? I feel real here. Not a boss, not a mother-in-law, not a mother, just a woman. Her knee accidentally touched mine under the table. She didn't move it away. In the elevator, we were silent. The tension was palpable. "Good night, Robert," she said at her door. "Good night, Jane." I couldn't sleep for a long time, remembering her look, the scent of her perfume, the warmth of her knee next to mine. My phone beeped. A message from Sarah. "How are things, honey? Mom wrote that the presentation went great." I stared at the screen, feeling something dangerous and uncontrollable growing inside. The next morning, we flew home. Jane fell asleep with her head on my shoulder. I sat still, afraid to move, thinking about how this business trip had changed something between us. Something I wasn't ready to name yet. Back at the office, she became Miss Foster again, strict and unapproachable. But sometimes I caught her looking at me, and my heart would beat faster. "Any more business trips coming up?" Mike asked casually. "Don't know," I lied, already knowing about the planned trip to Boston in 2 weeks, and knowing for certain that Jane would be going with me again. After Chicago, everything changed. Outwardly, everything remained the same. Meetings, reports, usual office routine. But every encounter with Jane now held some special subtext. "Robert, come to my office with the report." Her voice sounded official on the phone, but I had learned to recognize special notes in it. Her office always smelled of coffee and some floral perfume. She sat at her desk, perfect hair, strict suit, strand of pearls around her neck. "Have a seat." She pointed to the chair opposite. "How are we doing with the quarterly indicators?" I started explaining but stumbled when she reached for a pen and her fingers slid across my hand. "Sorry," she whispered but didn't move her hand away. We froze, looking at our touching fingers. Time seemed to stop. A knock on the door made us jump apart. "Come in." Her voice sounded slightly hoarse. In the evening, a message came. "Tomorrow's meeting at 7. Stay after." I knew I should refuse, but I replied, "Okay." The next day, everyone left at 6. We remained alone in the empty office. "Coffee?" she asked, unbuttoning her jacket. "Sure." She made coffee in the small kitchen. I stood nearby, feeling the warmth of her body. "You know," she said, not looking at me, "sometimes I wake up and think, what am I doing? I'm your mother-in-law. I should be thinking about Sarah's happiness." "And what about your own happiness?" She turned to me. "What is happiness, Robert? What's right or what you feel?" I took a step toward her. "And what do you feel?" "Something I shouldn't," she turned back to the coffee machine. "Something dangerous." The office was quiet, only computers humming and ventilation whirring. We drank coffee, sitting on the couch in her office, talking about everything and nothing. "Your lipstick is smudged," I said, looking at her lips. She reached for her purse for a mirror, but I stopped her hand. "Let me." My thumb carefully wiped the lipstick from her lower lip. She held her breath. "Robert!" "Shh!" A phone ring destroyed the moment. Sarah. "Honey, where are you? It's late." "I'm at work. Urgent project." "With Mom?" There was no suspicion in her voice, only care. "She's not home either." "Yes, we're finishing the quarterly report." "Say hi to her and don't stay too late." Jane heard the conversation. When I hung up, she stood. "We need to stop this." "Stop what?" "All this," she gestured around the office. "Late meetings, accidental touches, we're playing with fire. What if I want to get burned?" She went to the window. "You know what will happen if someone finds out? If Sarah finds out?" "I know." "And you still want to continue?" I stood behind her, almost touching her back. "Do you?" She turned around. Our faces were so close I could feel her breath. "I should say no," she whispered. "Should be reasonable." But I can't stop thinking about you, about us, about what could be." At that moment, a door slammed in the corridor. We jumped apart like teenagers. "Security," she exhaled, making rounds. "I'll go." At the door, she caught my hand. "Boston, in a week. Are you ready? For the trip or for everything?" I looked into her eyes. "Are you?" She didn't answer, but we both knew. In Boston, everything would be different. In Boston, we would cross that line after which there would be no going back. And honestly, I couldn't wait for that moment. Boston greeted us with rain. In the taxi from the airport, we sat in silence, watching the wet streets. Jane sat so close I could feel the warmth of her thigh. "Dinner in my room?" she asked as we rode the elevator. "Don't feel like going anywhere in this weather." I nodded, understanding we both knew it wasn't about the weather. She ordered wine and light snacks, took off her shoes, settling in the armchair with a glass. "What are you thinking about?" she asked when the silence became unbearable. "About how we both know how this will end." She put down her glass. And how will it? With what we both want and what we're afraid of. Lightning flashed outside the window. The room went dark power outage. I'll get candles, she said, standing up. In the darkness, she stumbled over the coffee table. I managed to catch her, pulling her close. Thank you, she whispered, but didn't move away. Her hair smelled of rain and something floral. My hands slid down her back on their own. Robert! Her voice trembled. Shh! The first kiss was careful, almost weightless. The second, more confident. By the third, we had both forgotten about everything. Her skin was soft as silk. She sighed quietly when my lips slid down her neck. The buttons of her blouse yielded reluctantly, or maybe it was just my fingers trembling. We shouldn't, she whispered, but her hands were already unbuttoning my shirt. I know. The darkness made everything unreal, like in a dream. Her touches burned my skin. We kissed like teenagers, hungrily, desperately, forgetting everything. The couch was uncomfortable, but we didn't care. Every look, every movement, everything was perfect. She whispered my name, and we both dissolved in this moment. Afterward, we lay listening to the rain outside, her head on my chest, my fingers in her hair. What now? She asked. I don't know. The lights came on, destroying the intimacy of the moment. We saw each other, disheveled, guilty, but happy. I need to go, she sat up, fixing her clothes. Stay? I can't. We've already... Jane! No, she shook her head. Let's just pretend this was a moment of weakness, that it won't happen again. But we both knew that was a lie. The next morning, she was immaculate, strict suit, perfect hair. Only her swollen lips betrayed our night. Meeting at 10, she said in an official tone. During the meeting, I couldn't concentrate. All I could think about was how she whispered my name, how she embraced me, how... Robert, your opinion? Sorry, Her eyes laughed, though her face remained serious. In the evening, she knocked on my room. Forgot to discuss an important point about the project, she said loud enough for a passing colleague to hear. The door closed. We were alone again. This is madness, she whispered, pulling me in for a kiss. Complete madness. We spent 3 days in Boston. 3 days of stolen happiness, secret glances, accidental touches, and passionate nights. Then came the flight home, where Sarah was waiting for us. How was the business trip? She asked, hugging us both. Productive, Jane replied, avoiding my gaze. Very, I added, feeling my lips burn with memories of her kisses. In the taxi, Sarah chirped about something, while Jane and I sat on either side of her, knowing we could never go back to what was before. The point of no return was behind us, in rainy Boston. After Boston, our life turned into a series of secret meetings and stolen moments. Official emails hid intimate hints. Business meetings stretched into late night. To my office, please. Her voice sounded strict on the phone. Need to discuss a new project. I would enter, closing the door behind me. She would turn on music, supposedly for background, but really to muffle our conversations. I missed you, she would whisper, allowing herself a brief embrace. Jane, we need to be more careful. People are starting to notice. What people? Mike asked yesterday why we stay late together so often. She tensed. And what did you say? That you're helping me with professional development. Funny, she laughed bitterly. I am indeed teaching you many things. Her lips were so soft that I forgot all precautions. We kissed by her office window, risking being seen. At home, it was getting harder. Sarah was happy that Jane and I got along so well. You know, she said over dinner, many people complain about their mothers-in-law, but I'm so lucky. You and Mom are like family. I almost choked on my wine. If she only knew how familial we had become. Jane would come to family dinners, sit across from me, perfect and unreachable. Only I knew that under the table, her foot was touching mine. Mom, you seem so happy lately, Sarah noticed once. Are you in love? Jane went pale. What nonsense. But your eyes are shining and you're always smiling. It's just work, successful projects. Especially one particular project, I muttered under my breath. She shot me a warning look. Rumors spread around the office. We were seen together at a restaurant discussing strategy. Someone noticed me leaving her office late at night. Urgent report. Maybe we should slow down? She asked after another secret rendezvous in her office. Is that what you want? Instead of answering, she kissed me. We met in hotels, business trips. We invented new reasons for working together. We lied to everyone, colleagues, family, ourselves. I can't do this anymore, she said one evening. It's killing me. I know, me too. But we can't stop, can we? Right. Her phone rang. Sarah. Hi, sweetheart. Yes, I'm still at work. With Robert? Yes, he's helping me with a presentation. Every lie was like a knife stab. But we couldn't stop. You know what's worst? She asked as we lay in another faceless hotel room. I'm starting to hate family dinners. Seeing how she looks at you. How proud she is of both of us. Jane? No, listen, we have to decide something. This can't go on forever. How can it? She sat up in bed, wrapping herself in the sheet. There are only two paths. Either we end this, or we risk losing everything. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. We froze. Room service, came a voice. We didn't order anything, Jane called out. The knocking continued. And then we heard another voice, painfully familiar. Mom, are you there? The concierge said he saw you. It was Sarah. Don't open, I whispered, but Jane was already putting on her dress. Mom, I know you're in there. Sarah's voice sounded worried. Just a minute, sweetie, I was taking a shower. I dashed to the bathroom, my heart pounding like crazy. Through the door, I heard the lock opening. Mom, why are you in a hotel? What's going on? Honey, I had an important meeting, confidential. In a hotel? At 9 in the evening? I leaned against the wall, cursing myself for parking my car right at the entrance. If Sarah sees it... The concierge said you weren't alone. Sarah's voice trembled. Mom, are you seeing someone? A heavy pause followed. Yes, Jane finally answered. I am. My breath caught. Why did you hide it? I would have understood. I can see how you've blossomed lately. Sarah, sweetie. Is he married? Is that why it's all secret? You could say that. I closed my eyes. Each word hit like a hammer. Is he here? Sarah lowered her voice. No, he left through the service entrance. Mom, this is dangerous. What if his wife found out? What if... I know, Jane's voice broke. That's why it ends tonight. My heart skipped a beat. Really? Yes, I can't do this anymore. It's wrong. Oh, Mom. The sound of hugging, sobbing. Let's go home, Sarah said. I'll drive you. Go to the car, honey. I'll gather my things. When the door closed, I came out of the bathroom. Jane stood by the window, hugging herself. Jane, don't, she raised her hand. Just leave through the back door. Wait 30 minutes. Can we talk? About what? About how we almost ruined my daughter's life? Your wife's? I love you. She turned sharply. Don't you dare say that now! But it's true. The truth is that we got carried away and almost paid dearly for it. She started gathering her things, avoiding my gaze. So that's it? We just end it? Yes, tomorrow I'll submit my resignation. I'll say I got a better offer. Jane, please. Goodbye, Robert. She left without looking back, and I remained standing in the middle of the room where just an hour ago we were so happy. A week later, she really left the company. A month later, she moved to another city, closer to her sister. Sarah was upset but understood her mother's decision, and I continued living, working, smiling at my wife, occasionally receiving formal messages from my former boss. But sometimes, looking at the empty office across the way, I remembered the scent of her perfume, the taste of her kisses, the warmth of her skin, and understood that some stories don't have happy endings. Sometimes the right choice is the most painful choice. 6 months later, I received an envelope. Inside was an invitation to the opening of her new business in Seattle, and a short note. Sometimes you need to go far away to start over, but some feelings remain forever. I looked at her handwriting and understood. She was right. Some feelings do remain, even if we choose not to live with them. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.